that we really got to just put our head down and just keep fighting a good fight, man. Caitlin Clark, first half was unbelievable. I thought they was going to honestly go down there to Atlanta and put it on them, bro. Caitlin Clark started off hot. I think she had 15 points and like 7 assists in the first half of this game. And the whole second half of the game, Stephanie White completely abandoned the Caitlin Clark style offense, went back to relying on running the offense through Kelsey Mitchell. And unfortunately, that was just not enough to get up.
A coding move that looked ordinary at first quickly became one of the biggest talking points surrounding the Fever. Stephanie White's first half offensive switch caught attention, but Carl Smesko's response made people wonder if there was a deeper story unfolding. The timing, the execution, and the reaction all raised new questions that fans could not ignore. Was this the adjustment that unlocked something special? Did Smesko reveal the truth about the Fever's offense? And why did this moment feel bigger than just one game?
This thing is over. This thing is over. I don't care what Caitlin Clark gets in front of the mic and says. Caitlin Clark checked out. She's done with Stephanie White, man. She's not going to get in front of the podium and absolutely slam Stephanie White the same way Stephanie White throws her under the bus routinely. There's already a huge smear campaign going on versus Caitlin Clark. If she gets mad that a ref doesn't call a foul, she's a horrible person, all of this stuff. So she can't really say anything publicly about Stephanie White, letting it be known like, yo, the coaching stinks, Kelsey won't pass the ball, all of this stuff.
If there is one thing that drives basketball fans absolutely crazy, it is watching a team discover a winning formula, dominate with it, and then somehow drift away from it before the game is over. That is exactly the conversation exploding around the Indiana Fever after their frustrating loss to the Atlanta Dream, and the reactions have only become louder after Atlanta head coach Carl Smesko openly discussed the adjustments that completely changed the game.
And I only think that's half the story. I mean, she played great defense. I mean, I think she's been having, an all-star level season for us. She's been great. And I just think she had a huge impact on the game today on both ends of the floor.
Coach, we saw Indiana shoot 80% from the field in the first quarter. You guys scored 113 points, the most in franchise history. Whenever you see a team red hot like that to start, how do you keep your team focused just to say, hey, just keep trusting, keep trusting, keep trusting?
Yeah, I mean, we just flat out said it. Said, hey, they shot 80% in the first half. Just keep guarding. What we have to eliminate is the miscommunications, because that led to wide open shots and wide open layups.
What makes this story so fascinating is that the Fever looked unstoppable for stretches of the first half. They were playing fast, they were creating open shots, they were moving defenders out of position, and most importantly, Caitlin Clark looked like she was operating in complete control of the offense. Everything seemed to be flowing naturally.
The sun's outside, the birds are chirping, and there's a section of the fan base that have woken up today and said, you know what? It's time to fire Stephanie White. I've held off as long as I possibly could, but after a good night's rest, I think it's time. Stephanie White needs to go. And to them, I say, welcome. Welcome to the dark side. Welcome to the Fire Stephanie White bandwagon, the Fire Stephanie White train, the Stephanie White needs to go parade. Well,
the second half, however, told a completely different story, and that dramatic shift is exactly why so many people are still debating what happened. What made the game so fascinating was not simply that Indiana lost. Teams lose games all the time.
Indiana Fever faced 2 consecutive losses, and cannot believe that this has become a thing, bro. At this point in time, the way the Fever is playing, the way the offense shifts from back and forths, and this is ugly to see. The Atlanta Dream had all 5 players in double-digit points today. Once again, another consecutive game where their starters had consecutive double points.
The story was how differently the Fever looked after halftime compared to the version of themselves that had dominated the opening 2 quarters. During the first half, Indiana's offense looked fluid. Confident and nearly impossible to contain, Caitlin Clark was orchestrating everything at an elite level, creating scoring opportunities for herself while simultaneously opening the floor for everyone. Around her, Atlanta's defenders constantly found themselves making difficult decisions because Clark's ability to score from deep forced them to extend farther than most teams are comfortable extending when defenders stepped up to challenge. Her shooting, she found teammates cutting to the basket. When defenders stayed home on shooters, she attacked the open space herself. Every possession seemed to place Atlanta in a lose-lose situation, and that is exactly why the Fever built momentum so quickly. Carl Smesko openly acknowledged after the game that Indiana's offense had been operating at an elite level in the first half. That admission alone should tell viewers just how effective the Fever were. Coaches rarely praise an opponent's execution immediately after a game, unless they genuinely believe the opposing team presented serious problems. The remarkable part is that Smesko did not sound surprised by Indiana's talent. Instead, he sounded impressed by how well they had adjusted from previous matchups. He specifically pointed out that the Fever recognized how Atlanta had defended them before and made immediate corrections that punished the
thing, but this thing is over, man. Stephanie White blames Caitlin Clark for the loss per usual. It's absolutely ridiculous, man. They need to blow it. And this was before the turnovers. This was before any of that stuff, you guys. You have to know this was the beginning of the third quarter. Caitlin Clark had just scored. She had just scored a basket. And this is what Stephanie White's doing. Stephanie White is scolding Caitlin Clark for making a basket. You know what happened after this? Caitlin Clark went on to turn the ball over 5 times in a quarter because she was mentally...
For much of the first half, it looked as though Indiana had discovered the perfect formula. The Fever were moving the ball quickly, spacing the floor effectively, and forcing Atlanta to react rather than dictate the action. Every coach dreams of putting opponents into that position because defensive basketball becomes much more difficult when players are constantly reacting instead of anticipating. Yet, basketball games are rarely won in the first half. Especially when quality teams are involved. One of the most underrated skills in professional sports is the ability to make adjustments under pressure. Great teams understand that no game plan survives an entire contest without modification. Opponents adapt, situations change, and momentum shifts. Success often belongs to whichever team can identify solutions the fastest. That is exactly what happened here. Those changes may sound simple on paper, but their impact was enormous. Basketball is often decided by small details that casual viewers rarely notice. A late rotation can create an open three-pointer. A missed switch can lead to an uncontested layup. A single communication breakdown can completely unravel a defensive possession. Atlanta reduced those mistakes dramatically in the second half. As their defensive organization improved, Indiana began encountering resistance that had not existed earlier. In the game, driving lanes became narrower, passing windows became tighter, open looks became harder to generate. The result was an offense that suddenly appeared far less comfortable. Naturally, that is where criticism toward Stephanie White began to intensify. Many Fever fans believe the team gradually drifted away from the offensive style that had generated so much success during the first half. Whether that interpretation is entirely accurate remains open to debate, but it is easy to understand why supporters reached that conclusion. Fans watched Caitlin Clark take control of the game from the opening minutes, and that is precisely why the second half discussion has become so intense. During the first half, she appeared to be dictating nearly every aspect of Indiana's offensive rhythm. She pushed the pace. As the first half unfolded, Atlanta struggled to contain Clark's influence on the game. Her scoring demanded attention, her passing created opportunities, and her overall presence forced defenders to make difficult choices. Whenever a player has that kind of impact, fans naturally begin to view that player as the engine that makes everything work.
We have to have another conversation about the Indiana Fever, Stephanie White, and the way this offense operates when Caitlin Clark is on the floor. Because tonight, Caitlin Clark came out absolutely on fire. 13 points in the first quarter alone. She was aggressive. She was in rhythm. She was controlling the game. The Fever had momentum, they had the pace, and they had complete control of the game while Caitlin was dictating the action. Everything that we be clamoring for. We saw tonight in that first quarter. But then once again, the game started to shift.
That is why so